Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. You may have seen the recent interview Ben Affleck talking about what was going on with his version of the Batman, why he passed the torch to Matt Reeves and Robert Pattinson, what his version of the Batman movie was going to be, what their version is going to be, and how things have changed behind the scenes. It's all very fascinating, so we'll break it all down. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. I'll be doing a lot more Batman videos now that they're in the middle of shooting the Batman movie. We're getting a lot more details about what's going to be going on. So we'll just break this down top 7 style. Starting with number 7, Ben Affleck has been doing press interviews recently for his new indie movie, promoting that. You've probably seen him a lot in the news. He's been way more active on his Twitter account. While he was doing those, he revealed the real reason why he chose to stop being Batman in the first place and decided not to do his version of the Batman movie, instead passing the torch to Matt Reeves and Robert Pattinson, as we all saw. They just released the teaser of him in the costume. Obviously, it's a big creative redesign for the character. They've shifted his new movies into the past, so it's kind of a prequel of sorts, even though it's not meant to officially be a prequel to Ben Affleck's Batman. But it's kind of the same thing that the studio did when Christopher Nolan came on to the Dark Knight trilogy after they did the Schumacher trilogy, just a completely different creative aspect and approach to the Batman character. The big thing about Ben Affleck's interview, though, is that it's a stark contrast to what people were saying about what was going on at the time when he initially announced that he wasn't going to be Batman anymore, because it went on for a long time. There were a lot of delays with his Batman movie. If you don't remember, they actually announced that it was going to happen. They said Ben Affleck will write and direct his own Batman movie. Everyone got really excited. It was at the beginning of 2016 because Ben Affleck was coming off his Oscar-winning director run. We hadn't seen Batman v Superman yet, but we got a teaser for the movie, so we knew that was coming up. We knew that they were going to make Justice League, so the Batman movie that they announced was going to happen after the Justice League movie. But there was all this cool stuff coming up. Everyone was really excited. I think it was at CinemaCon in 2016 when they announced the Batman movie. But at the time, the trades were reporting that his Batman movie was supposed to come out fall 2018 or fall 2019. Remember that this is 2016 when they're announcing this, so that was still way down the road that was going to happen. That was also at the time when they were still going to do a trilogy of Justice League films, so they weren't going to start filming the Batman movie with Ben Affleck till after they finished filming all 3 of those Justice League films. Their plan was very similar to the way that Marvel filmed Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, just doing it back to back. So it was way more filming time for the actors, but it's because they were doing 2 giant films at the same time. Number 6, WTF. But then as we all saw, Batman v Superman came out a couple months later after they had announced the Batman movie, divided audiences so much that the studio, Warner Brothers, panicked, and that's when all the drama on the set of Justice League started, in the start of what a lot of Ben Affleck refers to as his own personal problems, his personal demons flaring up. That's when he says a lot of his drinking problems got really bad just because of the stress of filming the Justice League movie and all the stuff that happened behind the scenes on that. One of the early problems that they had with Justice League, though, is that they had already started filming it when Batman v Superman hit theaters, so the studio wanted to make all these changes while they were already in the middle of filming this original vision that they had for this trilogy. Then things got even worse later that year when Suicide Squad came out and did even worse, wound up being a disaster, so the studio panicked even more. They wound up changing their plans again for Justice League. Instead of doing it 2 films, they would just do 1 Justice League film. And then obviously, as we know, Zack Snyder was forced to leave the project for family reasons. So number 5, WTF. What happened after that is originally Ben Affleck was supposed to roll right into production on directing the Batman movie for a 2019 release date, and that was going to be his last major film as the Batman character. He and Jeff Johns had finished their script a long time before all the Justice League stuff started happening, so the script was sitting on a shelf. It was ready to go. But now Ben Affleck this past week said that the reason why his version of the Batman movie didn't move forward like we all thought it would was because all the trouble they had on set doing Justice League exacerbated his own inner demons and drinking problems. He said at the time he had shown the Batman movie script to some people. Everyone said it looked like a great movie. It seemed like it was going to be a slam dunk. He was a great director in his own right, so there was no reason to believe that he couldn't do it. But the sheer toll of directing and being the lead actor in the same movie and it being a major $150 million studio tentpole film at that seems so insurmountable. The stress seems so great that both he and his closest inner circle of friends were worried that the stress of it all would cause him to drink himself to death. So his main reason for leaving the Batman role and his version of the Batman movie, passing the torch to Matt Reeves and Robert Pattinson, was more him thinking about his own well-being, the well-being of his family, his own personal health. At the time, there were all kinds of terrible rumors about the studio not being happy with his version of the movie. Turns out that's all bullcrap, everything was fine, it was just Ben Affleck was in a very bad place personally, and none of his friends or family wanted to see him kill himself slowly trying to make a Batman movie. So number 4, what was his version of the Batman movie going to be? Well, you remember the Deathstroke teaser that Ben Affleck posted himself a couple years ago in that airplane hangar? That was actually them testing out the special effects and the costume for Joe Manganiello's Deathstroke for the Batman movie. He was originally going to be the main villain of that Batman movie, the script that he and Jeff Johns wrote. The studio had big plans for Deathstroke as a character within the DC universe too. They had a cameo in the Justice League post-credit scene. They were originally going to do a Deathstroke solo movie. Currently, that's not happening right now. I think they've kind of shelved that permanently. What we do know about his version of the Batman movie's script is that it would have been a version of the Raid Redemption set in Arkham Asylum, with Batman being forced to fight his way down floor by floor through a gauntlet of his own worst villains that he himself had personally put in Arkham. There weren't any big reports about why he had to fight his way through Arkham, if it had anything to do with the Joker. Obviously, at the time, that's still Jared Leto's version of the Joker, or if it was a Baby Yoda situation with a child that he was trying to save that was being held in the lower levels. If you've never seen the Raid movie, it's actually a pretty badass foreign film, but it would have been a very self-contained Batman gauntlet run inside Arkham, kind of like the Batman Arkham games at the time. And if it wasn't clear, that movie would have taken place after the events of the Justice League movie, because the movie would have come out after Justice League, and we're still with Ben Affleck's version of the character. It wouldn't have been a prequel or anything like that. Number 3, so then what happened after Ben Affleck made the final decision to pass on the project was letting the studio know, and that's when they hired Matt Reeves to write and produce and direct a new Batman movie, recasting the role, which would eventually wind up being Robert Pattinson, as we all saw. When they brought on Matt Reeves for the project, part of his deal was that he would be able to do his own version of the Batman. The studio also kind of wanted to differentiate this new version of the Batman from the Ben Affleck version that had come before, like sort of creatively retune things, even though there were a lot of good things about Ben Affleck's Batman. But that was also part of the reason for going with a younger version of Batman. One, because Matt Reeves really wanted to do a Batman Year 2, Year 3 story early in his career. A lot of this all coincides with the leadership changes behind the scenes at Warner Brothers. They decided to clean house behind the scenes and stick with the stuff that was working already, not change any of that stuff, and just retune some of the bigger stuff that they weren't super happy with. Or in the case of people like Ben Affleck, who didn't want to continue playing their character, just bring in a totally new team to reimagine the character during a different time period. So number 2, right now Matt Reeves' first Batman movie is being made with the same intent that Christopher Nolan had when he first started making Batman Begins. They were coming off the Schumacher Batman movies and they wanted to creatively reimagine the character, but Christopher Nolan did not have a green light for The Dark Knight yet when he was making Batman Begins. His deal initially was just for that first Batman movie, and they were like, well, if this Batman movie does well, then we'll do another one, but one movie at a time. Obviously, the studio saw Batman Begins when it was almost finished and said, okay, this Christopher Nolan guy seems like he knows what he's doing. Let's give him some more money to make more of these Batman movies. But that was sort of a different era of big comic book movies before the dawn of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That's when all of Hollywood, all the other studios got thirsty for their own cinematic universes, which is where a lot of Warner Brothers' problems with their DC movies started, trying to rush out their own version of the MCU instead of taking their time to establish all their main players first. So because they just released the new Batman teaser with Robert Pattinson, number 1 WTF, a lot of people asking if his version of the Batman will ever cross over with other Justice League characters, because there are a lot of them now. There are going to be a ton more DC films with different characters. Well, right now, everything that the studio, the producers, and Matt Reeves himself have said, I think the only way that Robert Pattinson's Batman ever winds up in a future Justice League movie or big crossover movie with another Justice League character is if he still wants to be Batman after the third new Batman movie in their trilogy. That wouldn't happen for a minimum of 6 to 8 years, depending on how long they take between movies, and it's minimum 2 years between big Batman sequels. I think the big takeaway from all this is that everyone just give Ben Affleck a lot more sympathy now based on all the Batman stuff that happened, because obviously he was thinking of his own health, and I think he made the right choice. Nobody wants to see him slowly kill himself just to get another Batman movie out. So everyone, post your reactions in the comments below. Do you think that he made the right decision? And obviously I'll be doing more Batman videos as we learn more about what's going on with the Batman movie, the Batman character in the future. Everyone, click here to rewatch that new Batman teaser trailer that they just dropped, and click here for my brand new Venom 2 Carnage video. Thank you so much for watching. Everybody stay awesome. This is the way.